What is going on, guys? My name is Seapeekay, and today I'm bringing you something that I've never done before. It's a conspiracy video. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people enjoy, like things like conspiracy and stuff like that. But this is like a more fun one. I recently saw Che doing a couple of conspiracy videos, and I actually thought they were really, really good, and thought that I would do some about a subject matter that I enjoy. So, I welcome you to my top 5-ish Harry Potter related conspiracies. I am excited. If any of these conspiracies do have like counter arguments, I will briefly go into them, but if you want to look them up yourself, you can. I will leave a link in the description to where I am looking at these. So the first conspiracy I want to cover is that there is a reason that Harry's class size is so small. So the reason that Harry's class size is so small. So J.K. Rowling actually said that there were around 1,000 students in Hogwarts. That's how many she perceived there to be, 1,000 students. Which means that for each year that they're there should be 35 students in each house. Ish. Obviously there isn't an exact split because the hat chooses where you go, unless of course you choose yourself. So there's never going to be an exact split, but there should be around 35 students per house. However, through the films, the ones that primarily focus on the schools, like the first 3 or 4, because after that it's kind of not really based at the school anymore, you will actually seem to notice that there are only really about 10 or 11 Gryffindors. Like there's just all the people that you would recognize from the film, but that's it. Like there's no mention of any other people. You don't really see any other Hogwarts students just bustling around the halls, any Gryffindor students bustling around the halls. However, there is a theory behind why the class size is so small in Harry Potter's year at school. And I enjoy this one. So it comes from a Tumblr user called Marauders Forever. And it says, what if there were less students in the Hogwarts class of 1998? That's when Harry Potter went. Because the period when the other kids would have been conceived, 1979 to 1981, was when Voldemort's reign of power was at its peak. Between the dozens of adults who joined the Order and the dozens of civilians who were killed in Death Eater raids and the dozens of adults that didn't want to bring a child into the world at that time, it's actually entirely possible that there was a baby drought for a few years in the wizarding world, leading to a smaller class size 10 years later, which is, I think, an incredible theory. I don't feel like it's actually... I mean, J.K. Rowling very rarely comments on these kind of things, and she's never mentioned this one. Obviously, she said there's 1,000 students, so it's probably just an oversight that they never showed more Gryffindor students. I think that's a really cool reasoning for it, and I personally believe that. Even if it's by accident, I think that the way that that works out is incredible, and I love to believe that because there was a crazy baby drought, there's now less students at Hogwarts that year because Voldemort's reign of terror was so frightening. I think that's incredible. So that's the first theory. So the second theory that I want to cover is a bit more of a silly one, and I think it's already been like super disproved. But the reason that the Dursleys are so horrible around Harry Potter is because Harry Potter is a Horcrux. So this one's a little bit of a strange one. So if you've seen all the movies, then you'll know that if you have possession of a Horcrux or you are around a Horcrux, then you actually can have like negative attitude, you can become very aggressive, out of your character, as seen in, I think it's the Deathly Hallows Part 1, when they're swapping around the locket until they work out how to destroy it, and everyone gets angry at each other and they all argue and they leave and it's crazy. People are saying that that's why the Dursleys are such horrible people, because they were around a Horcrux for 10 years, which is insane because, you know, no one ever spends that much time with it. However, it seems that the more obvious and normal explanation for them being horrible people is just that they're horrible people. So, you know, they literally just hate Harry Potter. So Petunia and the rest of the Dursleys, assumably, hate Harry because of his mother, and she resented Harry's mother. You know, Harry's mother was a witch, and she was really good, and, you know, Petunia was just the muggle who had no powers, and she wasn't seen as, like, the golden child, so she was always very, like, pushed back in her family when she was growing up, so because of that, she actually grew to resent her sister. And if you've actually read the story on Pottermore, which I'll leave a link to the description in, you can see that James actually insults Vernon back in the day, and he never makes up for it. And Vernon kind of always held that grudge against him for that reason. So the likelihood is that because Harry's parents, his mum was born a witch, which isn't his fault. His dad was potentially a little bit arrogant, but, I don't think it was as bad as it's made to seem. And it seems that Petunia and Vernon just hold a grudge. Okay, so the third theory I want to cover is that Harry Potter is immortal. Now, this one is two separate theories. One I only found out about recently, and one I've known about for a while. So I'll cover the more silly one first. So, the reason that some people think that Harry Potter is immortal is that he has a Horcrux that can never be destroyed. So, people think that Harry Potter actually has his own Horcrux, and I'll explain why. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which is the second movie, there's a big scene where he's, basically fighting with the basilisk whilst Tom Riddle overwatches and, sees what's going on. And Harry eventually kills the basilisk. Now, this is where it gets a bit messed up. So I only read this one recently and it really confused me. But Ginny is incapacitated and is over at the other side of the chamber, and she isn't close by. And when he kills the basilisk, he also gets, bit. I believe it's on the arm. And he slowly starts to fade away. But everyone's favorite resident phoenix, Fawkes, flies in, cries on him, and saves the day. Now, people made this crazy theory up that when Harry killed another beast in, cold blood, that a part of his soul split and attached itself to Fawkes the Phoenix, because you make a Horcrux by killing something, and then a part of your soul splits into an item nearby. Now, there's so many loopholes with this one that it's unreal. One, Fawkes the Phoenix actually does die, but he's just reborn over and over again. So, definitely not immortal. Two, I read that it had to be a living, that Fawkes was the closest living entity, but it doesn't have to be a living entity because, half of Voldemort's Horcruxes were just items. So that theory is completely disproved. This one I've known about for a little while, and this one's more clever. So, this relates back to, if you remember when Professor Trelawney has the prophecy, her actual prophecy, and she's in a crazy voice and she's looking all mental, and she says the line, I think, either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. So people are like, oh my god, one of them's got to kill the other one. Only Harry can kill Voldemort. Only Voldemort can kill Harry. That's what you're made to believe. However, somebody called HP Wombat has broke it down kind of differently, and I like this one. This one's clever. So the prophecy reads, either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. In the book, you read that as one of them will have to kill the other, as I just said. And that's exactly how I read it, and I'm sure that's exactly how most of you guys read it. But what if it meant something else instead? What if it meant that the only way that either one of them could die is from the hand of the other? So Voldemort can only ever die by being killed by Harry Potter, and Harry Potter can only ever be killed by Voldemort. Now, this leaves you in a predicament, because what if one of them kills the other one? Then the other one has no way to die ever. So if Harry Potter kills Voldemort, Harry Potter can only die by being killed by Voldemort. So Harry Potter is now technically immortal. Oh, the other way around. Voldemort can only be killed by Harry Potter. If Voldemort kills Harry Potter, only Voldemort is immortal, and he can never die because there's no one to kill him anymore. So, that's a crazy theory. I really like that. And it means that by killing Voldemort, Harry sacrifices his own death and will never die. And it's made pretty clear from the films and the books, obviously, that all of his loved ones are essentially dead at this point. His parents, Sirius, everyone. Eventually Snape too, which is, and all those people are dead, and the only way he can be reunited with them is to die himself. And he seems somewhat happy to make that sacrifice if he has to. But because he killed Voldemort, Harry Potter could now technically be immortal. Okay, so the fourth theory that I have is, again, it's a little bit of a fun one. So Neville was actually never bad at magic. He was just using the wrong wand. Now, those of you who are big fans of this series already will know that the wand chooses the wizard and, you know, all that good stuff. And that's why a wizard is good with a wand, because they are chosen by it and it attaches to them and, you know, it allows it to be used. But Neville, however, seems to be the outlier in all of this, because he comes to Hogwarts. His parents were both fantastic witches and wizards, and he's dreadful. He's pretty dreadful in the first couple of films. So there's a couple of like little things that are important here, and it's that the way that J.K. Rowling explains it is a witch or wizard must visit Ollivander's wand shop is the ultimate personality test, as the otherwise inert ones choose whether or not the person wielding them is destined to be its master. When the unique magical artifact's potential aligns with the right witch or wizard, sparks literally fly out of the wand and it will commit itself to a single master. So a much better explanation of what I just said. However, there are other unique circumstances where you can use someone else's wand. It's saying basically if a wand doesn't choose the owner, then it'll never be at its full potential. However, a wizard may adopt another person's wand out of necessity. Ron Weasley, as you'll remember, also didn't have his own wand. Ron Weasley had his brother Charlie's old wand. However, they did that to save the expense of a new one, which means it's a necessity. So the wand will function sufficiently, but never to its full potential. So for those of you who don't know, Neville actually got his wand by choosing to use his dad's. So he didn't have to use his dad's. He went out of his way to choose to do that. So obviously Frank, Neville's dad, had been an aura and had used the wand for many a powerful spell. And, you know, he was using it even in his final battle with the Death Eater, where he eventually got tortured to the point of insanity. So Neville, knowing that the wand would then go unused in St. Mungo's, which is the Harry Potter equivalent of like a psychiatric ward, Neville actually went and took it as his own. And that was the beginning of his many, many botched spells that he did in the first few years. So this is one of those theories where there's no way to actually tell whether or not it's true, because it makes sense. Like the baby drought theory, it makes sense. But no one's ever said it's true. So we can't ever assume it is, because Mrs. Rowling has decided to stay quiet on the matter. But yeah, I mean, at one point, Neville eventually went to Ollivander's and got his own wand. His dad's wand was snapped in the Battle of the Ministry, or Battle of the Department of Mysteries even. So his wand was actually snapped there by a Death Eater, so he had to go and choose his own wand. And if you've seen, you know, the final films, you'll know that Neville's a badass. Like his spells are on point. He's taking on some Death Eaters. It's all going pretty well for him after he gets his own wand. And towards the end of everything, he even becomes an aura. So things must have gone pretty well after he got his own wand. And the final theory that I want to bring you guys is another, like, one that I really enjoy. I think it's really fun. And that is that Draco Malfoy is in fact a werewolf. So the first thing that's important here is to know that although Draco works for, you know, the bad guys, and he seems to be alleged to them, he seems to be in allegiance with them, Draco is not actually a Death Eater. So you never once, any of the books, see that Draco has the Dark Mark, meaning that he is not officially a Death Eater, he's just working with those people. And I mean, just to quickly as well, there's a scene when he's in Borgin and Burke's, I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that, where Draco threatens to reveal something on his arm, and he grabs hold of his robe. That's just to scare the guy who owns Borgin and Burke's. He's going to think that he's a Death Eater, and that's very clever. But he never actually shows anything. So two users called Brittany and Nick claim that Draco Malfoy is a werewolf, and they think that the physical mark that isn't a dark mark on his arm could in fact be a werewolf bite. So he wasn't intimidating Borgin and Burke's owner by saying he was a Death Eater, he was intimidating him by saying he was a werewolf. And in the same conversation, Draco actually name drops Fenrir Greyback, who is the werewolf Death Eater. He calls him a family friend in the same conversation. So the users Brittany and Nick think that Draco was actually forced to be bitten by Fenrir as a punishment to Lucius, for his constant failures of the Dark Lord, and he never really shows his allegiance that much. You know, obviously he is a Death Eater, but he always seems nervous. He never actually seems to want to do anything bad, and he always seems very quivery and shaky when Voldemort is around. There's a noticeable point in the 5th movie, Half-Blood Prince, yeah. So, where his appearance, Draco's appearance, becomes a lot more raggedy. He always looks tired. He's got dark marks under his eyes. Now, originally when I was reading, I never, thought werewolf, because that's not the first thing I would go to. But I just thought he was stressed. He was tired. Draco clearly doesn't want to be a Death Eater. He doesn't want to be, Voldemort's apprentice or whatever he's taking him under his wing as. He just wants to be a normal guy. And you see that in the multiple times that he doesn't stop Harry Potter when he should stop him. The first few films, yeah, he wants to try and hurt Harry Potter or stop him, but that's because he doesn't realize the severity of the situation. He doesn't realize that Voldemort is, on his rise, and then when Voldemort's back, suddenly it's a very different story, and he realizes that it's an awful choice to make. And the next part of the theory is that his mother also has a dead giveaway that Draco is not a pureblood. So Narcissa Malfoy, who is Draco's mother, technically turns on Voldemort towards the end because she goes across to see if he's dead, and she says that he is in fact dead, even though she knows that he can fight back. And people are saying that a pureblood mother who has a pureblood son would have no fear of living in a world where Voldemort was in charge because they're purebloods, so they'd be fine. However, because her son is tainted, she had to lie because she needed Voldemort to be taken down so that Draco could live his life normally. Sadly, this was debunked. Now, I know I previously said that it wasn't shown in any of the films. However, Draco actually showed the Dark Mark in the 6th film. Now, this theory was probably created before the 6th film was out. The books were out way before. And you never once hear Draco mention a Dark Mark, and you never once see it shown. Or it doesn't say like Draco brandished his Dark Mark or Draco showed Dumbledore his mark, anything like that. But you will remember in the scene, he does actually get very upset and he pulls his sleeve up and you do see the Dark Mark. The reason I said it wasn't was just because I wanted to keep you interested in the theory towards the end. So this one has actually been debunked already because he actually is a Death Eater. Although I'm sure some of you have actually already put in the comments that I was wrong. But just to cover myself, I wasn't wrong. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. And if you want to see more things like this, there are lots more Harry Potter theories, or I can do some conspiracies for other movies. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, then leave a like and share it with a Harry Potter fan. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!